The police make an unusual request to the investigators, which unexpectedly sheds new light on a past event, a missing guy, a trip, and an eccentric lecturer. Discover what is the truth, and above all, where to look for it. I'm Game Master in action, and this is a new scenario. 1994 is an original scenario for the RPG system Call of Cthulhu, published by Chaosium. In this scenario, players take on the role of a group of peers, 24-27-year-olds. They come from the same town, located in the area of Los Angeles Twin Peaks, but at the moment they probably don't live there, and each of them is building their adult life, whether in LA or some other city far from their hometown. But nothing is preventing any of the characters from living in their hometown. Their shared story begins a decade earlier. It was 1984, and everyone in the area was living for just one event, the LA Olympics. As residents of a small town near LA, the protagonists felt the atmosphere of the upcoming event, the excitement, the spirit of sports, and the general tension. At that time, the Karate Kid movie was also released. Both of these events created the spirit of sports in the young characters. As it happened, there was a martial arts school in their town, and as you can easily guess, the 1984 summer vacation became for them a time of physical and mental karate training. This is also how the characters met. Of course, it's possible that they knew each other by sight before. After all, it's a small town, and they most likely attended the same school. Their group was led by the school's owner himself, whom, as in the film, they called Master Miyagi. In addition to them, Amanda and Tobby were also in the group. Those were fun times, but nothing good lasts forever, and the school closed at the end of August. Amanda left town, and their paths slowly began to part. Now back to 1994, the adventure begins at the police station, where the characters have the opportunity to meet for the first time in a long time. Each of them has been asked to appear at the station, because the police, it was stated, need their help in finding Tobby, who went missing nearly a week ago. The characters, of course, have no clue what's going on with him or where he might be. They have had no contact with him for nearly 10 years. The only thing they are able to say is that over time Tobby began to become more and more closeted and distant from the group even before their paths parted. The police, of course, accept this explanation, but still ask them for help.
We doubt that there is any coincidence in Tobby's disappearance, and it is also not without reason that we are asking the entire group associated with the karate school for help. There is no denying that his disappearance comes 10 years after Amanda's disappearance. We are not saying that these cases are connected, but we can't rule it out either. With each passing day, the probability of finding him decreases. Even if your paths have diverged, you knew him. You stuck with him those 10 years ago, and now it's time for you to help us find him. Maybe through your shared past, you will be able to spot something that we or his family can't see.
The very fact of asking them for help is quite a surprise to the characters, given their lack of relationship with Tobby. But what surprised them most was the information about Amanda. It is possible that this is the reason why the characters go for coffee or beer together after visiting the station. In their memories, Amanda's story looks a little different. Around the end of summer '84, Amanda moved with her parents to another city. And although the characters remember it slightly differently, none of them remembers Amanda missing. What's more, one of the players remembers getting a postcard from Amanda. It was already late autumn. It's possible that they still have it somewhere in the family house. The postcard with the signature, "We will meet again for real." But from where it was sent, it is hard to say. The postal key is unclear. There are not too many sources of information about Amanda's case. One of them is certainly the parents of the characters, if they remember anything, and another is the library. In the materials for this scenario, you will find some articles that the characters can find, and this is where things start to get grim and strange. The parents will confirm that it was said that Amanda was missing, or rather, that she was abducted. Newspaper articles found seem to confirm this. The main suspicions fell on the karate school leader, who was supposed to have abducted her and left the country. When asked why the characters don't know about this, and were told that she had moved to another city, parents will be puzzled, claiming that they were involved in the search for her themselves. But all this happened 10 years ago. What is the connection to Tobby's disappearance? Did Tobby know the truth? The best place to start the investigation is to visit the boys' home. When the characters go there, in the house there is only the mother, who obviously remembers the players and is very grateful for their visit and willingness to help. From her story, it seems that Tobby had started to shut down more and more since Amanda's move and the school's closing. There were no problems with him, but he just became more and more introverted, and it's hard for her to say what was going through his mind. He started to be interested in movies, and even shot some of his amateur videos. He was so interested in this that she thought Tobby would go to a film school. He never had too many friends. He kind of stuck with the girl across the street and recently had some friends somewhere out of town, but his mother, unfortunately, doesn't know who it is or where he's from. She secretly hopes that Tobby has left to join him, but the police don't share that hope. Tobby works at a movie rental shop and doesn't get out of the house very often. A few months ago he went to LA, once on a field trip, and then 2 more times. It was there that he met the aforementioned colleague. The mother doesn't know exactly what the trip was about, but it was probably something related to urban planning. The mother also adds, perhaps in a slightly uncertain voice, that the boy said he was going to make a film about the history of the building where the karate school was located. He's a little too fixated on that point. The characters can take a look at Tobby's room. It is located in the basement, and at first glance they can see that it has more the character of a studio where he edited his films than simply a room. There are shelves with a huge number of videotapes, each with a label and a handwritten title. There's a TV, several video players, some kind of equipment, most likely for video editing. There's also a sizable corkboard on the wall, with a map of the US and some notes pinned to it. Each is labeled with an inscription and a string of characters. If players pass the library use test, they'll recognize that these are books and library signatures. But what is the point of this? As for the tapes, there are more than 100 of them, and to watch all the films is obviously impossible. Looking at them by description, they are either niche, little-known films or Tobby's productions. But looking randomly, no title particularly attracts attention. There is a cassette in one of the video players. When they turn it on, they can see that it has been watched many times. The picture is already worn out, a heavily distorted image and crackling sound. But it is possible to recognize that it is a lecture of some kind. An elderly man talks about something, but the tape is already so worn out that it is difficult to understand anything. From the scraps of his speech, the characters can piece together that the lecture says something about an impermanent aspect of reality, about its changeability. Suddenly the professor's lecture breaks off, or rather is replaced by a recorded view of a street, literally a street and a piece of sidewalk, and after a while, Tobby's voice.
For many years I was fed a lie about Amanda's fate, a different one each time. Now I know that each of these tales was equally true and equally false. I was told that I went through too much as a child and was losing my sense of what was reality and what was not. But tell me, what is reality? Where is reality? Now I know. Just like all of you, I am a victim, a soul fed by lies, a wronged child, looking for answers to questions we are not allowed to ask. Who do I trust when everyone is afraid to ask questions? They choose to lie instead of liberating themselves. I despise them. Amanda found me. She never left. She came first, and now it's my turn. For those who are not afraid to seek the truth, it ends where it all began.
You will find this recording in the materials for this scenario. It ends where it all began. Could it be the karate school? At this point, the characters realize one more thing. The television set standing in the corner is on. Nothing is visible but static noise. The characters are convinced that it was off when they entered, and more interestingly, they can't tell when it turned on, because it must have turned on by itself. Could it be that it reacted to Tobby's voice? The longer they stare at the noise on the screen, the more they get the feeling that they are being watched. A feeling strong enough to be worthy of a sanity test. If players check the TV, they may come across a small antenna signal booster, a small metal box connected between the antenna cable and the TV itself. For players with weaker nerves, it may look suspicious. If the characters take it apart and pass an electronic repairs test, they will learn that it looks more like a transmitter than an amplifier. They can also get this information from their local service center. It's worth adding here, and this is also information the characters can get from Tobby's mother, that his room has already been checked by the police. After leaving the house, a girl walks towards the players from across the street. They recognize her from their school days, but rather by sight. Her name is Samantha. She doesn't know what happened to Tobby and is worried about him, but, and this is added in an even more worried voice, she says that Tobby said the characters would be looking for him. He told her that the kids he went to karate classes with will be looking for him one day, and then Samantha is supposed to give them this. And saying this, she hands the players an envelope. Of course, she doesn't know what's in it, nor has she told anyone about it. At this point, a police car drives down the street. Seemingly nothing out of the ordinary, but the characters, or at least one of them, notice how one of the policemen is watching them closely from the passing vehicle. Samantha mentions that Tobby never liked the police, but she doesn't know why. In the envelope, the characters find a phone number and nothing else. When they call the indicated number, let's assume from the phone booth on the corner, they hear a male voice on the other end, but it's not Tobby. When they say under what circumstances they got the number, they hear from the other side only a harsh f***. After a while, the man says he can meet them at 1 o'clock in the morning and gives the address of a bar on the exit road to LA. It is indeed evening, but there is plenty of time before the meeting. It's been a long and tiring day for the characters, so they'll probably want a little rest before the meeting. When one of the characters returns home, or to the hotel, the phone starts ringing. It's the police. They are calling to find out if they have succeeded in establishing anything. Again, they stress that time is running out, and that their participation in the investigation is crucial. If you want to turn up the atmosphere, the TV in the room of another of the investigators may suddenly turn on, and again, only with some static noise. This time, it will already require a sanity test. The feeling that someone on the other side is watching will be downright paralyzing. As in Tobby's room, an antenna signal booster is installed. It's time to meet the stranger. The meeting place is a typical American roadside bar. At this hour, it is practically empty. When the characters sit down at one of the tables, after a while, a waitress appears with a pot of coffee and an expression on her face indicating her great joy at their visit. Moments after them, a guy appears. He immediately heads in their direction. He sits down and, without waiting for an invitation to talk, says that this meeting can't last too long, and the topic of Tobby seems to him to be a slippery one. The guy introduces himself as Mike, but it is immediately clear that this is not his real name. And here's what you can learn from him. He doesn't know Tobby very well. They met during a tour in LA. It was a kind of city tourism meeting. For a small fee, a student shows people around places you can't normally find in tourist guides. Mike had been on several such tours, but Tobby showed up on one, and it was hardly a coincidence, because he knew exactly what he wanted to learn. The topic of the tour was what the guide, Megan, called a network of readers. From her story, he said, in the 1970s and 1980s, there was a group of people in LA, and in fact beyond, who claimed that the world we live in is not real, is a simulation, a collective dream, a delusion. But more interestingly, they believed that into this delusional world comes information from real reality, and it is contained in books. Not all of them, of course, but specific copies scattered in various libraries. This network of readers knew how and where to find them, and how to read the information in them. Interestingly, these readers did not meet and did not know each other. Megan added that they met only once. Supposedly in one of the books they read such a message, and when this meeting happened, they were all arrested and some of them were lost from sight. The guide showed where this meeting took place, but there was nothing special there, and she knows the story itself from, as she put it, the last member of this organization. She didn't want to say who it was, but Tobby got terribly worked up about it, and at the end of the meeting, pulled out her contact for that man. Tobby was no longer present on these trips. Mike doesn't know and doesn't want to know who this man is. All he knows is that he's some kind of lecturer, and Tobby met with him some time ago. In fact, not long before he disappeared. But after that meeting, he was even weirder. He had a fixation on the disappearance of this Amanda. He claimed that her story was changing, that when he was a kid, everyone remembered it differently, and now it was as if the past had changed. That's when he also told Mick about the characters. He claimed that only the group associated with the karate school remembers different versions of the story. According to him, now everyone only remembers her abduction, and then they only remembered her moving to another city. Mike hands the investigators a small piece of paper, adding that this is where Tobby's paranoia began. The scrap of paper reads, "I know the truth about Amanda," as well as FIC75658 and the annotation 120. Tobby wanted Mike to pass it on to the players. Mike also adds that after meeting this professor, Tobby began to panic about the cops, claiming they were watching him. Maybe Tobby just got so deeply paranoid that he fled the city so that the cops wouldn't catch him, although ironically, they only started looking for him after he disappeared. And as if on cue, at that moment, several officers enter the bar. An awkward silence falls. Mike, without waiting for events to develop, leaves the bar. The policemen sit down at one of the tables. It is possible that they ask the waitress about the characters, or maybe it is just a growing paranoia. Between you and me, it's no coincidence. The policemen are keeping an eye on the actions of the characters. The return home or to the hotel passes peacefully, but the same cannot be said of the night. The characters are haunted by nightmares. They can haunt any of them or a selected character. In this dream, they are running through the streets of Twin Peaks, escaping from something. They have the impression that windows in the buildings like eyes are watching their every move. They hear the footsteps of the one chasing them. When they turn around, they realize that it is the Master Miyagi. After a while, the streets turn into a corridor with huge mirrors hanging on the walls. They see their caricatured reflections in them, which reach out to them with twisted arms, trying to grab them, pull them in, enslave them. Drenched in sweat, they wake up. You can ask those who had this dream to test the power. Failure will mean loss of sanity. A new day, new challenges. At this stage, the characters have a few leads. The karate school. It seems to have been mentioned by Tobby in a recorded message. A contact with a professor Tobby contacted. They can also try to contact the tour organizer. And finally, there's a note that says, "I know the truth about Amanda." Let's start with the school. The building is currently abandoned. In fact, it has been for some time now. But to get a better idea of its history, the characters will have to look for information in the library. From the articles available there, you can find out that there have always been some problems with this building, and its tenants never held on to it for long. After the karate school closed, it housed a cabinet of mirrors for some time. It brings to mind this bizarre dream. Coincidence? When they think about it, they come to the conclusion that it's unlikely any of them knew about the cabinet. If the characters decide to go to the vicinity of the school, it will turn out that entry to its premises is forbidden. The property is fenced with a fence, and the sign hanging on it informs that the building is in danger of collapse. If players try to enter its premises, they will immediately hear loud barking and hear the voice of the watchman. It is possible that a police car will also appear in the area, and the more players try to get inside, the greater the chances that a confrontation with the police will occur. Surprisingly, the police will be well aware of who they are and will say that it is dangerous to be inside the building, and the police have already searched it quite well. At this stage, it should already be clear to the players that the police are onto them. But why? It's time to take up another lead, a tour guide. Megan is a student of urban planning and makes a living as a guide, or rather, she made a living, because she recently had to suspend this activity. When asked why, she will admit that it was not exactly an official and registered initiative, and the law enforcers told her to end it, or she would have to face legal consequences. Asked about Tobby, she will admit that she remembers him, but doesn't know what might be going on with him now. The topic he was interested in was an organization she calls a network of readers. She was a little surprised by this because she had never met anyone who had heard anything about them before, and Tobby knew exactly what to expect from this trip. As for the Readers Network, it was a group of people who were looking for books scattered all over the States. Not just any books. There was something peculiar about them, but she herself doesn't know what. She only knows that through them they were supposed to receive messages from the real world. When the players ask about the lecturer, she reluctantly admits that she passed on the contact to him to Tobby, and she herself knows about the organization from him. The man claims to be its last member. Megan feels guilty that it was because of her that Tobby disappeared, or at least that she contributed to it to some extent, which is why she gives the players a lead on the lecturer. As for the books, it seems that Tobby also started looking for them. After all, in his basement there was a board with some places and signatures. The lecturer is Brian Colmack. If the characters look for information about him, they will find articles in the press that put him in the light of a detached madman who has lost his right to teach, at least at the university. The characters have a phone number for him. At first, he won't want to cooperate with them, but explaining the case and mentioning Megan and Tobby will make him willing to help somehow. He can meet with the players in person in LA or talk on the phone, and here's what you can find out from him.
Readers? No, we did not use such a name for ourselves. In fact, we did not adopt any name. Initially, I admit, I was driven by simple curiosity, as, I think, were the others. However, over time, an understanding emerged that passed into a kind of deeper exploration, for we discovered that indeed it was no longer just about satisfying interest, it was about truth. Over time, we came to understand that the world we live in is not reality in the literal sense, but something like a collective dream, or, as one might put it, a simulation. And books, scattered in various libraries, have become peculiar transmitters, keys to communication with a reality beyond our perception. For it seems that those who are, so to speak, on the other side, have found a way to contact us. They have done so through minor printing errors, through those bizarre copies that, at first glance, might have seemed nothing more than parodies. For example, not Wuthering Heights, but Windy Hills. Unfortunately, the more we delved into the subject, the clearer it became that there are also forces that do not wish us to continue this search. We quickly associated them with certain groups that, in the manner of the law's guardians, seem to be watching to ensure that certain secrets are not revealed. Your colleague, Tobby, revealed to me that in the past he had come into contact with someone who also, it seemed, belonged to the group of these, as you called them, readers. He was, I learned, Tobby's martial arts teacher. Tobby longed to find him, and I'm afraid I was the one who gave him the idea of how to do it. You know, in my research, I came across several books that allowed me to delve deeper into how we can influence what we call reality. Some would call it magic, but I personally shy away from that term. I found ways to hide from those who sought us out, and I suppose that's the only reason I can still talk to you. In addition, I have discovered a method of going to the other side. However, I admit it with some embarrassment. I lack the courage to use it. I shared this method with Tobby, however.
Mr. Colmack hands players a sheet of paper with a description of the rite of passage. If the conversation took place over the phone, he can send it by fax.
The spell itself is not everything. The place of the passage is also important, but with this I will not help you. I have never looked for it. Tobby claimed to know where it is. He claims to have found a book that directed him to the place.
If the characters try to contact Colmack after the meeting is over, they will not succeed. Between you and me, shortly after the meeting, he fell into the hands of the police. As the players already know, Tobby was on the trail of some book. Mike handed them a piece of paper with the information, "I know the truth about Amanda," and the signature, and number 120. If the investigators have not yet looked for it in the library, it's high time they did. In the library, they find out that the book is Alice Through the Looking Glass, but when they go to look for it on the bookshelf, to their surprise, or maybe not, the book has a different title. Veronica Through the Looking Glass. The note indicates the page on which several words are marked. The characters can inquire about the history of renting, but they will not find anything interesting there. For that, chatting with the librarian, who may even remember the characters from their school days, will allow them to discover that Tobby also inquired about this book. In his recording, Tobby said that it ends where it all began, that is, in the karate school, which later was a cabinet of mirrors, and thus seemed to be crucial in the ritual handed down by Colmack. As we already know, getting to the school building will not be easy, acting in haste, avoiding the watchman and the police, and maybe struggling with the demons of the past or the actual collapsing building. What the players will encounter there, I leave to you. The mirrors inside are numbered. The one with the number 81 is on the second floor. There, in a small room, there is only one mirror. The walls are covered with dark material. There are no windows. Behind the mirror, something lies. It seems to be a backpack. Tobby's backpack. The characters feel someone's presence, but it is on the other side of the mirror. Is it hostile? Or is it just watching? If the players are brave enough, they will perform a ritual and open a passage. And when they do, two people will pass through the sheets of the mirror. It's their former teacher, Amanda.
Almost 70 years ago, in 1925, a group of cultists, worshippers of an ancient being, opened a portal and in their madness traded the souls of all humanity in order to gain immortality and power. Now all of humanity is enslaved and living in its own dream. I was preparing to awaken you, but unfortunately, I was exposed too early. I managed to awaken Amanda. Now it's time for you, but it's your choice. Tobby tried to wake up on his own, but something went wrong, and he is somewhere between worlds. Maybe together we can find him.
Yes, I know. It sounds like the Matrix with tentacles, and that's the point. Players now have to make a decision, go through the portal, and liberate themselves, join Miyag, or leave and forget everything. But does that option even exist? Now that the police are treading on their toes? There are still many questions and many plots left in this story, but these I leave for you to explore. That's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the story, and if you did, hit that like button and subscribe. Remember to check the link to the handouts in the description below. Thank you for joining me, and see you in the next episode. Until then, may your roles be critical and your adventures be legendary.